evening. My name is Jahabar. I'd like to congratulate all the winners and honorable mentions who have just got their awards. I represent the wooden spoonists, the ones who didn't make it, in real life and in the awards. And I'm here today to speak for about 8-10 minutes about what happened in Malaysia. I'm sure most of you are familiar with Malaysia. It's hit the headlines the last 2 years because of a four-letter word, 1MDB. So last year, my parent company, The Edge, they bought us in 2014. They were banned from publication for 3 months and consequently suffered financial losses, primarily because most of our advertisers all linked to the government. I don't know how many of you track the Malaysian stock market, but most of the companies on the index have the government as a majority shareholder through various funds and pension funds. So for 3 months, the newspaper was suspended. The group fought the suspension in the courts and got it lifted. But the damage was already done. Meanwhile, we were all covering all the stories about 1MDB. I don't think I need to tell you what 1MDB is all about, but it affects the government of Malaysia, it affects the credibility of the Prime Minister, who's also the Finance Minister, who's also the chairman of the advisory board of 1MDB. So we were requesting the Prime Minister to sack the Finance Minister for not sacking the advisory board chairman, and it all turned out to be the same guy. So what happened was then it got into the police and the anti-corruption agency. They investigated it. They sent a report to the new Attorney General, who deemed there wasn't enough evidence to prefer a charge against the Prime Minister for having an unexplained amount of $700 million in his private bank accounts. We reported faithfully whatever the government said. We also reported that the anti-corruption agency believed it had enough evidence. Of course, if it doesn't have enough evidence, it wouldn't have sent investigation papers to the Attorney General. But the day we published that report, February 25th, 2016, was also the 8th anniversary of the Malaysian Insider, and we were blocked in Malaysia. But the blockage by the government of Malaysia just forced their hand. Eventually, they decided, despite getting some very good offers, to buy out the Malaysian Insider, including from me. I had a few businessmen friends who were willing to donate money to the Malaysian Insider rather than SOPA, SK, which I said, don't mention money. But they said, no, we will shut it down. And they shut it down on March 15, 2016, which is exactly 3 months ago. You know, all this experience, I've been a journalist now for 28 years. Just lets me to believe this. In Asia, there is a flourishing media environment. International media have a greater chance of success because they are not bound by national laws. So they can report freely, accurately, without fear or favor about what's happening in Malaysia. But those of us who are in countries like Malaysia, when a government is threatened by truth or when they are asked to be accountable to the people, they can exert their influence, their laws, and they don't have to do it legally. All they have to do is withdraw money via advertisement. We were asked once why we didn't charge, we didn't have a paywall like the New York Times, like the Times of London, like Financial Times. And I explained it very simply. I said, most Asians prefer Europeans to pay for them to read the news. That's the reality. You know, when you already pay about $500 for a handphone and about $50 a month for your data service, you don't really have that much more money to pay for news. You expect it to be free. You know, because the joke is in Malaysia, you buy a newspaper for 50 US cents and 10 people will read it. So, you know, it just works out to 5 US cents per person. And that's what's happening in Malaysia, and I think also in other parts of Asia, where if you're a local media and you're struggling to get the government accountable to you, to tell facts, the truth, you will be forced to concede or roll over because of economic pressures. They don't need to use laws. So when you might have excellence in reporting, you might be really good at what you do, but when you have not enough revenue and you're always in the red, we never made money. We lost money, and I said, as long as we are an indulgence of philanthropists and tycoons, we are subject to their whims and fancies. And when the Insider first started, it was a collective effort. For 6 years, we could operate despite any pressure, because none of us were bound by any vested interest of the government of Malaysia. But when you're bought over by another company, and the Edge is a good company, but the main shareholder also has other interests, property, and every other kind of business. So when one side of your ventures are affected, it'll impact your other side of ventures like media. So I won't blame the government of Malaysia for what happened to us. We worked for 8 years. We did quite well. We were not a viable proposition because we didn't take money from our readers. We had an angel investor. We had many angel investors, and we had a lot of advertisers. Your gold sponsor, Google, was our partner. We made $30,000 a month from Google AdSense, which is a lot of money in Malaysia, but it wasn't enough to sustain a group that was growing really fast. When we closed, we had 59 people, which looking back is really stupid for an online portal. But we expanded because our parent company wanted to do a lot of different things. But when the government decided, I'll shut you down, I'll block you, I'll do this and that to you, as a businessman, you have to make really tough decisions. And the toughest decision was also always the easiest one. Shut down what you can shut down that doesn't make money, keep what you can make money, and let it continue for a while. On the last day we were about to shut down, we only had one advertiser left, notwithstanding the blockage. And amazingly enough, this advertiser was a government agency. It was a central bank of Malaysia, Bank Negara, the one institution that stood head and shoulders above the rest, who complied with the executive of the day. So only one agency, corporate agency, actually believed in us and said, fine, you are blocked in Malaysia, it's okay. Your traffic is still good enough around the world. We still want to be on your website. You know, so I think, seriously, why I'm here today, apart from representing the wooden spoonists, is to say there is a lot of hope for media in this region. I'm glad to note that digital awards for digital websites and other products. I think, unfortunately, in most of the Southeast Asian countries, print is dying because of logistics, the price, and the fact that today the news cycle is 5 minutes. It's no longer 24 hours. And everybody is, what I like to term it is into outrage clickbait. They just want to be outraged whenever they go to Facebook, Twitter, they just want to get outraged and they'll share it. And most of us, whether we are publishers or journalists in this online world, we pander to that. So the lessons learned is, I think, and I see at these awards is long form, stories that matter, individual stories that rise above the daily, he said this, he denied that, that will work. For, I think, Malaysia and the rest of the region. Of course, if you all have any other ideas, I'm around, but I like to say this finally. We in Malaysia and the Malaysian Insider, we did it for 8 years and we loved every minute of it. And the day it shut down, funnily enough, I felt a huge sigh of relief because I thought then, you know, okay, no more going to jail. You know, have you ever heard of journalists going into jail just to give a statement? Being forced to sleep in a cell with a guy on manslaughter charges. You know, it was a very interesting experience. The police fingerprinted us, handcuffed us and everything, and they thought it would frighten us. I think governments all over the world think, you know, they throw a journalist from the middle class into jail, he'll be frightened. But, you know, it's exciting. In the day of age where everything's an achievement unlocked, I made it to jail. I couldn't check in. There wasn't no Wi-Fi on my phone. I couldn't check in. But, you know, so today, these governments don't understand, in the social media world, you want to go to jail. You want to be handcuffed. You want to do that selfie. But as I said, there was no Wi-Fi and there was no reception, so I don't have that picture. But yeah, so I still believe that we will start again, I hope, by next month. We'll still ask this government to be accountable, not just to the media, but to the people of Malaysia. And I hope there'll be more people, a lot more, who will think that journalism isn't a glamorous occupation. I'm sure most of you in this room know that. It's a terrible occupation. You know, it's a 25-hour-a-day occupation. You spend months and years doing things you never thought you'd do, and going to places and eating things you never thought you'd eat. But it's good to see something in print. It's good to see people sharing it, people discussing it. It's good enough for me to be here today. So I thank you. SK said, just give a very short speech. Everyone wants to go back to eating. So, and I listen to my seniors. If you have any questions, you can ask me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Very interesting. See if this works. Very interesting to hear your tales and your optimism and pessimism in the industry. I'd like to start first by asking you about journalism in Malaysia. I mean, obviously you've had some pretty serious struggles in your time. Does freedom of the press exist there at all at this point?
I used to say this, and I still say it, as long as the Malaysian Insider was up and kicking in Malaysia, there was freedom of the press. The government doesn't really bother about us because they think we have a limited appeal. We wrote in English. In the last 30 years, the education system in Malaysia everything's in Bahasa. So they've always assumed that we only appeal to a minority of people in Malaysia. But when we started having a Bahasa section, local language section, then they stood up and took notice. I still think there is freedom of press in Malaysia. My colleagues in Malaysia Kini are doing a great job. There are a few other portals. The government doesn't actually want to do a lot to us because it just brings up the fact that they are not quite a good government at all.
Thank you. We have time for a few questions from the audience. There are microphones around the room, so anyone want to raise their hand? Questions? It's a room full of journalists. Come on, guys. Right over here at the, I think that's the SCMP table. I've never heard such a quiet room of journalists.
Okay, how are we? What kind of role do you think that Google and Facebook and a lot of these companies that are actually controlling how people get access to the news should be playing in free speech?
Well, I mean, primarily they are distributing and redistributing our news. We have become slaves to, unfortunately, Google and Facebook. We feed them content and people share it and share it and share it and then give their opinions, and then as I say, you know, we take people's discontent from the social media and make it our content, and our content becomes people's discontent again. It goes on and on. But it's all part of a larger ecosystem. You know, I think when you're no longer in print, we are completely online, you depend on Facebook, on Google, to be your platforms to reach out to a lot of people. As I said earlier, we've made some decent money from Google AdSense. We still don't know how to make money from Facebook Live, you know. It's a completely different ecosystem. I don't think it'll sustain us, but it has also changed the way we present news. It's all become very personalized now. I used to work in Reuters. I used to be Tara's colleague, and we used to write a stock standard pot boiler kind of news. I'm sure you all know agency news. I was in television. We did videos the same way. You do a wide, you do a pan, you do a close-up, you do a tilt-up. But today, with Facebook, with Google, you're forced to change the way you report. You're forced to change the way you do long-form, and long-form is anything more than 2 minutes for video. So you try to fit into that. But you still don't know how to make it sustainable. I was in Paris in April for a conference by the French government. How do you make online media sustainable? And after 2 days, courtesy of the French government, wine and really good food and everything else, and cheese, lots of cheese, we still don't know how to make it sustainable. So it's a very hard question to answer. As I said, maybe America has shown the way, not for profits, or maybe paywalls, but Asia is different. People don't have the means to pay, as I pay $6 a month for New York Times. It's probably their monthly wage. So that's the part in Asia that's difficult, I think, But having said that, today we have all these international newspapers and magazines focusing on Malaysia and other countries only when scandals erupt. Not the long form, not the thoughtful stories. We had a few just now about Afghan women. I've been in Afghanistan. So those are the kind of stories that people remember. And I think if we local journalists in our respective countries look for these kind of stories, it might work. People might want to pay a bit more for it, but still won't make it sustainable. Not even with Facebook or Google's help. Not yet.
Very interesting. We have time for one more question. Over here.
Hi. Do you think the story of 1MDB will ever be told domestically inside Malaysia, or will that end up coming from outside?
It's a story that everybody knows in Malaysia, and funnily enough, a fair number of people have been brainwashed to think that it's okay. It's okay for a prime minister to keep that much money. It's okay for one government company to lose that much money, because it's not the first time that's happened in Malaysia. It happened in 1982 under Mahathir. We had Maminco, lost a lot of money. We had Forex losses, we've lost a lot of money. And our relationship with Hong Kong, BMF, we've lost a lot of money. So in Malaysia, it's a case of how much more bigger the scale of the scandal can be. We're so used to it because we're such a rich country. But it's frightening is because we've been inert to this. We'll keep losing money. Our prime minister is not exactly, the straight man that we think he thinks he is. Because, no one today in Malaysia has an appetite to challenge the status quo, to challenge this prime minister within his party and says, sir, you got to leave. You've lost us too much money. We need to find ways of covering up this hole. As I was explaining just now, we are very fortunate because we're a rich country. A lot of countries are courting us. And they don't want to favor another person to challenge my prime minister, because any other replacement might be a Mahathirist. And I'm sure you know Dr. Mahathir Mohamad and how grating he can be to everybody else. So we are caught between the devil and deep blue sea. Everybody knows the story. They don't know what to do about it. Their option is, if I don't support Najib Razak, I'll support Dr. Mahathir Mohamad. And what kind of choice is that? He turns 91 July 10th. In a month's time, he turns 91. He's still strong, hale and hearty. He drove a car yesterday for a TV show. He's an amazing man. And I was saying, because he's fueled by anger and hate. You can live forever if you're fueled by anger and hate. Not beef. Thank you very much.